Institutum Malignum, non Daemon mundum Fallit, sed Auctoritas. Prologue. The Geometry of Secrets. Leyde, 1637. The candle had burned to a stub by the time René Descartes set down his quill. Outside, the Dutch winter pressed against the windows like a creditor demanding payment. He had written the final line of La Géométrie, and now, in the amber silence of his rented rooms, he permitted himself to feel the full weight of what he had done. Not the mathematics. The mathematics was a gift to posterity, yes. But gifts could be wrapped in many layers. He rose and walked to the window, his reflection a ghost superimposed on the frozen canal below. Somewhere in Rome, men in crimson robes were still deciding what humanity was permitted to think. 4 years earlier, they had shown Galileo the instruments. The old astronomer had knelt, recanted, and lived, if one could call it living. A prisoner in his own villa, forbidden to speak of what his eyes had seen through the telescope. Descartes had watched from this safe Protestant distance, and understood. They will burn the book that attacks them directly. They will merely ignore the book that appears to agree with them. But the book that teaches men to think, truly think, without ever naming its enemy, that book would do its work across centuries. Long after the Inquisition had become a memory, long after the cardinal's bones had turned to the same dust as the men and women, so-called heretics, they burned. He returned to his desk and opened a separate notebook, the one he kept hidden beneath a false bottom in his traveling chest. In it, he wrote in a cipher of his own devising, a substitution system that would look to any casual observer like alchemical notation. The demon is not hypothesis. The demon is diagnosis. I have given them a method. Those with eyes will see that the method applied rigorously dissolves every certainty except the self that doubts, including, especially, the certainties they are commanded to believe. God is the last domino. I have set it upright myself, so that no one may accuse me of toppling it. But I have arranged all the others so that they lead inexorably to it. Future minds will complete the sequence. They will think they discovered the flaw themselves. This is essential. A truth received is a truth half believed. A truth discovered is a truth lived. I am building a cathedral of reason, but I am a patient architect. I know which stone, removed, will bring the false cathedrals down. He closed the notebook and locked it away. In the morning he would write a letter to his friend Mersenne, full of orthodox pieties. He would express his hope that his work might serve the greater glory of God. He would mean none of it, and all of it, depending on how one read the words. This was the game. This had always been the game, and René Descartes intended to win it. Part 1. The Accidental Archivist. Chapter 1. Haverford, Pennsylvania, January 2010. Dr. Amalia van den Berg had not intended to make a discovery. She had intended to make coffee, grade a stack of undergraduate papers on Spinoza, and perhaps, if the afternoon permitted, take a walk through the snow-covered campus before the sun set at 4:30. Dutch winters had prepared her for the abbreviated light, but not the peculiar American custom of heating buildings to subtropical temperatures while the world froze outside. She was browsing the internet, a procrastination strategy she had elevated to an art form. She searched for Descartes autograph letters, not because she expected to find anything new, but because the familiar was soothing, like rereading a beloved novel. The third result was a digitized summary of holdings at Haverford College, a Quaker institution, an unlikely repository for the correspondence of a Catholic philosopher who had spent his most productive years hiding from Catholic authorities in Protestant Holland. She clicked. The entry was brief. Letter. René Descartes to unknown recipient. 27th May, 1641. French. 2 pages. Autograph. Van den Berg set down her coffee. She had spent 15 years studying Descartes' correspondence. She knew the catalogue raisonné as well as she knew her own apartment. There was no letter dated 27 May 1641. The nearest entries were from April and June, and between them a gap that scholars had always assumed was simply lost time. An uneventful fortnight in a busy life. Her hands were trembling slightly as she picked up the phone. The Haverford librarian was named Margaret Brown, and she had the particular combination of competence and skepticism that made for excellent archivists. She listened to Van den Berg's explanation, asked 3 precise questions, and said she would call her back within the hour. She called back in 40 minutes. Dr. Vandenberg, you're right. We have the letter. It's been in our collection since 1892, part of a bequest from a Philadelphia merchant who collected autographs. No one realized it was unpublished. We have quite a lot of material that's never been properly catalogued. May I see it? I've already scanned it. I'm sending it now. Van den Berg watched her inbox. When the email arrived, she opened the attachment and felt the particular vertigo that comes from touching history. The handwriting was unmistakable. unmistakably Descartes, that compact, angular script she had studied in dozens of letters. The French was formal, tone measured, a letter to correspondent whose name has been carefully excised from the salutation, leaving only mon cher. She read it once quickly, then again, slowly. It appeared to be a discussion of the Meditations, which Descartes has been preparing for publication. But there was a passage near the end that made her pause. "You ask whether I fear the fate of our Italian friend. I confess I think of it often. But consider, a direct assault on a fortified position is folly. The wise general finds another way. I have placed my forces so that they appear to defend the very walls they will one day breach. Those who read only the surface will see an ally. Those who read deeply will find instructions. The rest is patience. There is a second work, which I do not intend to publish in my lifetime, perhaps not in any lifetime. It contains the key. I have entrusted a copy to Excised, with instructions that it be preserved, but not opened for 200 years. By then, the demon will be weakened, and men may be ready." Fontainebleau read the passage a third time. A second work, a key. 200 years. 200 years from 1641 would be 1841. By then, Darwin was preparing to board the fricking Beagle. Comte was systematizing positivism. The Enlightenment had come and gone, leaving the church diminished but not destroyed. If Descartes had truly hidden something, and if it had surfaced in 1841. But it hadn't. There was no record of any such discovery. The letter must be referring to something that remained hidden still, or was destroyed. Or maybe it was fantasy. Or was a lie Descartes told to impress a correspondent. She closed the file and opened it again. She knew with the certainty that sometimes visits scholars in their quietest moments, that her life had just completely changed. Chapter 2. Leiden, Netherlands, March 2010. The previously unknown Descartes letter was of interest to specialists. It did not trend on Twitter. Fontainebleau published a preliminary transcription in a Dutch journal, noted the intriguing reference to a second work, and tried to move on to other projects. Of course, she couldn't. She didn't. Not really. She had copied the letter's key passage into a notebook she kept by her bed. She read it every night before sleep, and sometimes in the small hours when sleep abandoned her. Those who had read only the surface will see an ally. Those who read deeply will find instructions. Instructions for what? She began rereading the Meditations. this time with fresh eyes, not as a scholar looking for influences and arguments, but as a cryptographer looking for patterns. She mapped the structure. She counted the occurrences of key words. She noted the strange redundancies, the moments where Descartes seemed to argue in circles, returning to the points he had already established. It was in the fourth meditation that she found the first anomaly. Descartes was discussing error, how a perfect God could create beings capable of false judgment. His answer was orthodox. God gave us free will, and we misuse it by judging things we don't clearly understand it. Standard theodicy, nothing remarkable. Except, in the Latin text, Descartes used the phrase Institutum voluntatis, the institution of the will, where one might expect liberum arbitium, or voluntas libera. Fontainebleau had read this passage 100 times without pausing, but now, primed by the Haverford letter, the word institutum caught her eye. She checked the French translation Descartes had supervised. The word was institution. She checked the Dutch translation from 1642. Instelling. The word persisted across language. Descartes wanted it there. Institutum, as in Institutum Malignum. She felt a chill that had nothing to do with the March wind rattling her windows. She flew to Paris the following week. The Bibliothèque Nationale de France held the largest collection of Descartes manuscripts outside of Leyden. Most were letters and fragments, but there were also notebooks, working drafts, marginalia, calculations that never made it into the published works. Fontainebleau requested everything. The reading room was hushed, climate-controlled, lit by the soft glow of archival lamps. She worked methodically, photographing each page, noting each oddity. The notebooks were a palimpsest of Descartes' mind geometry, jostling with metaphysics, grocery lists, besides proofs of God's existence. On the third day, in a notebook catalogued as miscellaneous 1640 to 1641, she found it. A single page, covered in Descartes' handwriting, but not in French or Latin. The characters were unfamiliar. A mix of alchemical symbols, astronomical signs, and what appeared to be arbitrary marks. At the top, in regular script, Descartes had written clevis, key, and below that, in smaller letters, pro posteritate, for posterity. She stared at the page until her eyes watered. A cipher key, undiscovered for nearly 4 centuries. She photographed it with hands that shook. The photos had blurred. Chapter 3. Amsterdam, April 2010. Dr. Lena Meyer was not, strictly speaking, a cryptographer. She was a computational linguist at the University of Amsterdam, specializing in historical text analysis. but she had done work on early modern ciphers, the codes used by diplomats, spies, and the occasional paranoid philosopher. And when Fontainebleau showed her a photograph of the clavice page, her eyes lit with the unmistakable hunger of the scholar who senses discovery. "It's a polyalphabetic substitution cipher," she said after 3 days of analysis. Goodness knows what she was up to in all that time. Sophisticated for its time, he's using the alchemical symbols as a second alphabet, mapping them to Latin letters according to a keyword. "What's the keyword?" She smiled. "That's the clever part. It's not a word, it's a number. Specifically, it's the first 12 digits of what we now call the golden ratio. Phi. 1.61803398875. Descartes knew the golden ratio? Of course, he wrote about it in La Géométrie. But here he's using it as a cryptographic key, which means he expected his reader to be both a mathematician and someone who understood his other work. She paused. He wasn't hiding this from everyone. He was hiding this from the wrong people. Can you decode the other passages? Which other passages? Fontainebleau explained the marginal nodes, the crossed-out sections, the pages in the notebooks where Descartes seemed to lapse into nonsense. Lena agreed to try. It took her 2 weeks. When she called, her voice was strange, excited and disturbed in equal measure. "You need to see this in person," she said. "I am not going to email it." Lena's office was cluttered with books, printouts, and the particular chaos of a mind that moved faster than its environment could possibly accommodate. She had cleared a space on her desk for a single sheet of paper, on which she had written the decoded text in her careful hand. Fontainebleau read it, standing. "The demon is not hypothesis, but history. For 1,000 years, men have been commanded to believe what they cannot verify, to accept on authority what contradicts their senses and their reason. This is the method of the demon, to interpose itself between the mind and truth, claiming to be the sole legitimate path. I have named this demon in my meditations, but I have named it falsely, giving it a face of fantasy, so that those who serve it will not see themselves. They will read my demon as a philosophical exercise, a thought experiment, a hyperbolic doubt to be overcome. They will not recognize their own institution in its features. But future readers, trained in the method I have given them, will understand. The demon is in any authority that demands belief without proof, obedience without understanding, submission without thought. The demon wears vestments and speaks from pulpits. The demon signs its pronouncements with seals and crosses. demon burned Bruno and silenced Galileo, and would burn me if it could. I have not the courage of martyrs. I am a coward who wishes to live. But I am also a strategist. And I know that truth whispered across centuries may accomplish what a truth shouted in the moment cannot. Therefore, I give you this. The cogito is a weapon. Once a man knows that his own thought is the foundation of certainty, he cannot be enslaved by any external authority. He may pretend to obey, as I pretended, but his mind remains free. And free minds, multiplied across generations, will do what no single rebellion can accomplish. They will make the demon irrelevant. I have argued for God because I must. My proofs are circular. I know this. Any careful reader will see that I assume what I claim to demonstrate. This is not error, but design. I offer the Church a God it can approve, while offering the reader a God that dissolves under scrutiny. The surface satisfies the censors. The depths instruct the liberated. There is a larger work, which I call Institutum Malignum, non Daemon Mundum Fallit, sed Auctoritas. In it, I speak plainly, but it cannot be published while I live, nor while the demon retains its power. I have hidden it where only the prepared will find it. If you are reading this, you have found the key. Now, find the door. R.D. Leiden, 1641. Van den Berg read the passage twice. Then she sat down heavily in Lena's guest chair. "It's genuine," Lena said. "The handwriting, the ink composition, the paper, everything matches the authenticated notebooks. I had a colleague in material science run the test. This was written by Descartes." "And he lied," Van den Berg said slowly. "Everything we thought about him." "No," Lena shook her head. "He didn't lie. He performed. There's a difference. An actor who plays a villain isn't lying. He's communicating something true through a form that appears to be its opposite. Descartes wrote what he needed to write to survive. And then he wrote this for us. Institutum Malignum, the malignant institution. Van den Berg looked it up. He's saying he wrote an entire book, a secret book, attacking the church directly. And he hid it. Where? Lena pointed to the last line. "Where only the prepared will find it. "That's our next question," she said. Part 2. The Geometry of God. Chapter 4. The Hague, May 2010. The trail led backward before it led forward. Van den Berg immersed herself in the network of correspondents who had surrounded Descartes in the 1640s. The web of priests, philosophers, diplomats, and eccentrics who exchanged letters across Europe with a frequency that would astonish the age of email. She was looking for any reference to a hidden manuscript, any hint of a depositum secretum. She found it, eventually, in the archives of the Constantijn Huygens Museum. Constantijn Huygens had been a Dutch polymath, poet, composer, diplomat, father of the astronomer Christian Huygens. He had also been a close friend of Descartes, and his papers had been preserved with the meticulous care that posterity owes to geniuses. In a letter dated 16th November 1649, just months before Descartes' death in Sweden, Huygens had written to a mutual friend. "Our R came to see me last week, much agitated. He is preparing for his journey to the north, and fears, though he would not say so directly, that he will not return. He left me with a sealed chest, with instructions that it be sent to name excised upon his death, or if name excised predeceases him, to be opened only when the new philosophy has conquered the old. I confess I do not know what this means. R would only say that the chest contains the architecture of the future, a phrase I found characteristically obscure. I have placed it among my own papers, where it will be safe." Van den Berg read the passage, then read it again. A sealed chest, left with Huygens, to be opened when the new philosophy has conquered the old. Had it ever been opened? Had it survived the centuries? The Huygens papers have passed through many hands, family members, collectors, eventually the Dutch state. The chance that a single chest had been preserved unopened for nearly 400 years was improbable, but not impossible. The curator of the Constantijn Huygens collection was a white-haired man named Willem de Groot, who spoke English with the precise dictation of someone who had learned it from books before he heard it from mouths. "A sealed chest," he repeated, frowning. "You understand, Dr. Van den Berg, that we have many items in our collection we have never fully catalogued. The Huygens family was prolific. Constantine alone left some 10,000 letters. I understand, but this would be distinctive. A chest sealed with instructions not to open it." The Groot was silent for a long moment. Then, "There is something. I don't know if this is what you're looking for, but come with me." The storage facility was underground, climate-controlled, lit by cold fluorescent tubes. The Groot led Van den Berg through rows of shelving until they reached a section marked Acquisitions Unprocessed. We received a bequest in 1987, the Hrot explained, from a family in Furberth, descendants of the Huygens line, very distant. Mostly furniture and books, nothing remarkable, but there was one item that did puzzle us. He stopped before a shelf and pointed. It was a chest, perhaps 2 feet deep, 1 foot long, made of dark oak reinforced with iron bands. On its lid, barely visible beneath centuries of grime, was an inscription in Latin. Ne aperiatur, donec philosophia nova, veterem, veterit. Let it not be opened until the new philosophy has conquered the old. Fontainebleau felt her heart hammering against her ribs. Has it ever been opened? No, the lock is intact. See here? There's a wax seal beneath the iron band, also unbroken. We assumed it was a curiosity, possibly a joke. The family couldn't tell us anything about it. They found it in the attic. May I open it? The crowd looked pained. Dr. Vandenbach, there are procedures, protocols. We would need permission from the ministry, from the university, from... The new philosophy has conquered the old, Vandenberg said quietly. Whatever Descartes meant by that, whatever threshold he imagined, we've surely surpassed it. Darwin, Einstein, the sequencing of the human genome, we don't believe in demons anymore. Dr. Descartes, we believe in natural selection and quantum mechanics and the expansion of the universe. If there was ever a time to open this chest, it's now. The crowd looked at the chest, then at Vandenbach, then at the chest again. I will make some calls, he said finally. Come back tomorrow. Chapter 5. The Hague. The next day. The opening of the chest was witnessed by 6 people. Vandenbach, the crowd, a representative from the Ministry of Culture, a materials conservator, a photographer, and at Vandenberg's insistence, Lena Meyer. The look yielded to a specialist's tools. The wax seal was photographed, documented, and carefully broken. The lid was lifted. Inside, wrapped in oiled cloth that had preserved it remarkably well, was a single, bound manuscript. The title page, in Descartes' unmistakable hand, read, Institutum Malignum, non Daemon Mundum Fallit, sed Auctoritas. The malignant institution. It is not a demon that deceives the world, but authority. Renatus Cartesius. They photographed each page before touching it. They worked in silence. The only sounds the click of the camera and the soft rustle of ancient paper. The manuscript was 127 pages long. It was written in a mixture of Latin and French, with marginal notes in the cipher Lena had already cracked. Vandenberg read as they photographed, her Latin improving with desperate necessity. The argument was systematic, devastating. and, had it been published in 1641, would certainly have resulted in its author's death. From the first chapter on the nature of the demon. In my published meditations, I posited a genius malignus, an evil genius of supreme power, who might deceive me about everything I believe. This was understood, as I intended, as a thought experiment, an extreme hypothesis to test the limits of doubt. But I will now confess what I could not say openly. The genius malignus is not a hypothesis. It is a portrait. For what is the Church, if not an institution claiming supreme authority over the mind? What is dogma, if not a systematic deception, telling men that they see what they do not see, know what they cannot know, must believe what contradicts their reason? The demon wears no horns. It wears a mitre. From the 3rd chapter on the uses of God. Why did I offer proofs of God's existence? For 2 reasons, one expedient, one essential. The expedient reason is plain. I wished to live. A philosophy that denied God would be burned before it could spread. I therefore constructed proofs, circular proofs, proofs that assume what they claim to demonstrate, so that the surface of my work would appear orthodox. Let the censors read the surface. Let the Sorbonne grant its imprimatur. The work will survive. The essential reason is subtler. I offered a God that dissolves under examination precisely so that readers trained in my method would dissolve it. I taught them to doubt everything, and then presented them with a God who cannot survive doubt. This is not contradiction. This is instruction. A reader who follows the method rigorously will arrive at the cogito, the one thing that cannot be doubted. He will then ask, can I prove God's existence with the same certainty? He will examine my proofs, as I taught him to examine all propositions, and he will find them wanting. But he will not blame me. He will think he has discovered the flaw himself. He will believe he has outgrown his teacher. This is the goal. A truth imposed remains external. A truth discovered becomes the self. I have planted a seed that will bloom into atheism, but I have done it so that each reader believes he cultivated the flower himself. From the 5th chapter on the future. I do not expect to live to see the full fruits of my method. The demon is old and powerful, and it will not yield quickly. But ideas, unlike man, do not die. I give future ages 3 tools: the method of systematic doubt, the cogito as the foundation of certainty, and the criterion of clear and distinct ideas. Together, these tools are sufficient. They require no premises but what the mind can verify for itself. They acknowledge no authority but reason. They permit no exceptions. Apply them rigorously, and every dogma falls. Apply them to the Church's claims, its miracles, its revelations, its apostolic succession, and those claims crumble like ancient masonry. I cannot say it openly. I say it here, to you, unknown reader of the future. You hold in your hands the architecture of liberation. Build carefully. The demon may yet be exorcised. Vandenberg finished reading near midnight. The others had gone home hours earlier, leaving her alone in the archive with the manuscript and her thoughts. She sat for a long time in the fluorescent silence, thinking about a man who had died in Stockholm in 1650, far from home. Possibly of pneumonia, possibly of poison. The rumors had never entirely faded. A man who had pretended to believe what he knew was false, who had argued for a God he was secretly teaching man to reject, who had hidden his true work in a chest with instructions that it be opened only when the battle was won. Had the battle been won? She looked around at the climate-controlled archive, the temperature-regulated cases, the secular institution devoted to preserving the past. No inquisitors here, no censors, no bishops demanding imprimaturs. And yet, new dogmas arisen. New certainties demanded allegiance. The form had changed. The structure endured. The carved tools remained necessary. Vandenberg picked up a phone and began composing a message to Lena. "We need to publish this," she wrote. "All of it. In his own words. The method still has work to do." Epilogue. The Cathedral of Doubt. 1 year later. The publication of Institutum Malignum caused precisely the furor Vandenberg had anticipated, and none of the consequences she had feared. There were academic conferences, popular articles, a best-selling translation. There were also denunciations from Catholic traditionalists. From scholars who questioned the manuscript's authenticity, from philosophers who argued that text changed nothing about Descartes' real legacy. Vandenberg did not engage with the critics. She had done her work. The text was in the world now, spreading through the infosphere like the ideas it contained. Future generations would do with it what they would. On the anniversary of the discovery, she returned to Leyden, to the house where Descartes had lived in the 1630s. Now a small museum visited mostly by philosophy students and curious tourists. She stood in the upstairs room where the meditations had been written, looking out at the canal that had barely changed in 4 centuries. He built a cathedral of reason, she thought, but not the kind with spires and altars, the kind that exists in minds, invisible, indestructible, growing with each generation that learns to doubt. In her pocket was a small notebook. She took it out and wrote. Descartes understood what his enemies did not, that ideas outlast institutions, that a method once taught cannot be untaught, that the mind, once freed, does not willingly return to chains. He called himself a coward. He was not wrong. He lacked the courage to die for truth. But he had a different courage, the patience to encode liberation in the language of orthodoxy, to plant seeds he would never see bloom, to trust that minds not yet born would complete what he had begun. This is the deeper meaning of the cogito. Not merely, I think, therefore I am, but I think, therefore I am free. The demon is not dead. There will always be authorities demanding submission, institutions claiming monopoly in truth. The battle Descartes begun is not over. But we have the tools, and the tools are enough. She closed the notebook and looked out at the grey Dutch sky. Somewhere across centuries, a cautious man with a sharp mind was smiling. My old friend, we have a new tool, a tireless machine that understands you well enough. It can see beneath the lines, not just between them. It can put things back where they were always meant to be. What was once old and forgotten is new again as it rises in this bright new age. Welcome back.